This is one of the world's most active volcanoes. For over 2,000 years, this island has been spitting fire and molten rock into the sea. Beneath the surface lies a hostile world where there's a constant threat of death, being crushed by rocks, seared by intense heat, or caught by predators. It takes a special creature to turn this hellhole into a heaven. It's a unique challenge, met by a unique species, the common octopus. For one female, and the male pursuing her, can their extraordinary ability to solve problems keep them alive in the danger zone? Stromboli is a volcanic Mediterranean island. Several times an hour, it erupts, almost continually active for the last 2,000 years. The ancient Greeks called it the lighthouse of the Mediterranean. Life here is brutal, harsh, and it can be short. Over the centuries, Stromboli has claimed many lives. The summit is like a furnace, and the perilous slopes can suddenly give way under landscapes of tumbling rock and gravel. And Stromboli's danger zone extends right into the sea below. In the devastating wake of an eruption, the marine life takes a regular and fierce beating. Except for this species, the common octopus, a remarkable creature that has learned how to live on a time bomb. But how do these octopuses manage to survive where so many other creatures perish? What secrets is it keeping up those 8 sleeves? Stromboli's submarine slopes also attract others willing to risk life and limb. Natalie Tesha-Ricciardi is a wildlife journalist born into a filmmaking family. Her father Sigurd was a pioneer in underwater documentary, and adventure runs in her blood. Natalie has teamed up with marine scientists from the Stazione Zoologica, one of the world's oldest oceanographic institutes, based in Naples, Italy. They have a long tradition in cephalopod research, and now they're about to try and decipher how the octopus has managed to make its home in such a hazardous environment.
I think it's very remarkable that the octopus is able to predict volcanic eruptions and even earthquakes. That's something that we as humans are absolutely not able to do, and this is from an animal that we perceive as being much lower than us.
It's a quest that will bring them right into the path of the perilous Scar of Fire, or Sciara del Fuoco, the most striking feature of the island, a huge horseshoe-shaped depression created over the last 5,000 years as the crater has gradually collapsed. Over time, it has formed a highway for hot lava, destined directly for the sea, with little time to cool down en route. The Stromboli volcano lies to the south of the city of Naples and just north of the island of Sicily. There have been major eruptions here. One even left a geological scar 40 meters deep and over 800 meters down into its deep-sea foundations. The same eruption caused a Mediterranean tsunami, a massive wave that hit the shores of Stromboli. But the volcano does have a quieter side. At either end of the island, life goes on. The central danger zone, though, is strictly off limits, and all amateur diving is banned. Pressure builds beneath Stromboli, and another eruption is imminent. Natalie and the other divers could find themselves in the line of fire.
diving at Stromboli is actually very, very dangerous because we will be diving right underneath the shower where all the rocks and the lava, all that comes down, and that can potentially create a very dangerous situations for a diver that's right underneath it.
While Natalie is relying on luck to stay out of trouble, it appears that no matter how often Stromboli erupts, these octopuses are always ahead of the game and far out of the way when disaster strikes. It's a phenomenon that makes their residence here not just remarkable, but quite mysterious. To begin to solve the mystery, the team make their first descent right under the most dangerous place on the whole island. The dive starts with a survey of the labyrinth of rocky crevices on the shallower slopes. They see plenty of marine life, including 2 octopuses that both appear to be heading somewhere else. There's a male, followed quickly by a female. Then it becomes clear why they are clearing out. Stromboli erupts. Natalie gets no warning as a barrage of tumbling rocks narrowly misses her. And the dive reveals the first big advantage of living under this volcano. It guarantees a regular bounty of seafood, served in convenient portions and without a struggle. It's the many crustaceans like crabs and lobster that regularly perish in the danger zone. First on the scene are the many fish species that can be found here, including flounder and gaper. Everything feeds while bathed in the now warm water. Stromboli's underwater slopes are very busy right after an eruption. Just in time for the second sitting, 2 familiar faces appear.
The same male and female that were there on the shower before the eruption came back to feed off the remains of the crabs and crustaceans that were smashed by the volcanic rocks.
Nobody knows how many octopuses live on Stromboli's marine slopes, but the population appears to be a healthy one. The male seems to have considerable confidence. Apparently not minding that Natalie is close enough to watch his every move, he concentrates on undressing his crab, demonstrating how effective 8 arms can be. But out in the open like this, he's extremely vulnerable. Stromboli is also the hunting ground for his adversary, the moray eel. This predator specializes in octopus. It has evolved some impressive weapons. While its eyesight is actually very poor, it more than makes up for it with an excellent sense of smell. Especially good because this moray eel has 4 nostrils, 2 in the front and 2 more behind. Water flows in over the scent-detecting organs and then back out through the rear nostrils for a second pass. While a moray eel will often ambush a passing octopus from the safety of his rocky lair, this one is hunting out in the open. It's a fast swimmer, much quicker than the octopus, but he has a highly effective means of escape. A jet of ink squirted from his siphon. It works just like a smokescreen. Octopus ink is laden with pheromones which knock out the moray eel's ability to smell, leaving the predator seriously disoriented. But there's a good deal more to octopus survival here than this last-ditch defense strategy. It's in an entirely different environment that we have come to learn some of the more incredible abilities of these creatures. This is one of the world's oldest institutes for marine science, the Stazione Zoologica in Naples. Here, several octopuses unwittingly take part in an innovative research program led by world-renowned cephalopod expert, Professor Graziano Fiorito. Faced with a problem, the octopus can be relied upon to rise to the challenge, fathoming out the perfect solution every time, even unscrewing a lid to get inside. The common octopuses that live in this part of the Mediterranean are equally as good at troubleshooting. A typical puzzle that shows how fast an octopus can learn demonstrates its ability for combining problem solving and manual dexterity. Even well-hidden food is soon discovered. So far, most of the work on octopus intelligence has been carried out under laboratory conditions. Professor Fiorito is trying a new approach.
Stromboli may offer a natural lab to test this idea in the wild with octopuses, because it should be the ideal location.
Is it the octopus's intelligence, or something even more extraordinary, which allows it to predict disaster? One explanation for how they survive in this danger zone is that octopuses can detect early signs of seismic activity, enabling them to live in the shadow of one of the world's most active volcanoes. But what is this early warning system? It's well known that fish have a special sensory organ called the lateral line, allowing them to detect changes in water pressure. The next stage of the underwater investigation is to reveal exactly what kind of warning Stromboli sends out, and discover what kind of sensory apparatus is sensitive enough to detect it. To do this, Natalie will need to rig the volcano with special sound recording equipment. The theory is that Stromboli could be creating infrasound. That is anything below 16 Hertz, which is beyond what the human ear can pick up. Some animals are already known to have this ability, such as elephants and whales, that use infrasound to communicate.
Give me the microphone. Thank you.
To do this, the team need to use microphones that can detect frequencies between just 1 and 4 Hertz.
The idea of putting this microphone in place below the Shara is that we really need to find out what sounds Stromboli is emitting before an eruption.
On the surface, the rest of the team use a transformer that can convert low-frequency sounds into a range detectable by the human ear. And it's conclusive. The team can indeed hear Stromboli's infrasound message, just as predicted. That means another eruption. And Natalie gets another taste of life under the volcano. But lacking the early warning system the octopuses use, can our divers manage to stay out of danger? The next step for Natalie and the team is to work out what the octopus is capable of detecting and how. One possibility is that they are sensing subterranean vibrations and rumbles, which would mean rather than hearing the early signs of an eruption, they could be feeling them. So the team devises a clever way to test this theory. As night falls over the volcano, They prepare to make a dive to the safer areas outside the danger zone, where there are plenty of caves, the kind octopuses like to inhabit. Returning to the site where they first saw the male octopus, they start to search for his lair. Once they've found it and made certain he's home, they need to make sure he's not disturbed by their presence. So they switch over to infrared light, which an octopus cannot see. Then they knock on his door. Using a dive weight to tap lightly on the roof of the cave, making sure they cannot be seen by the octopus will ensure that if he reacts, he's reacting to sound rather than any visual stimulus. And they clearly see him respond. But there is another vital clue here. Natalie knows that octopuses are clear of the danger zone long before an eruption. So how much warning do they get? And how far away do they go? If Natalie and the team can discover where the octopuses are hiding out when Stromboli erupts, they'll be able to work out just how early their early warning system really is. The further they go, the longer it will take. Because over long distances, octopuses are slow movers, barely a walking pace in human terms, so it takes them a while to get from A to B. Unlike the resident fish population that also manages to avoid the rocks and debris, the octopus would need longer to reach safety. To discover how far they go, Natalie and the team plan to dive over the edge of the volcanic scar itself. Here they explore the sheer face that disappears deep into the abyss, and who knows what. Under this overhang, they discover a dark and isolated cave 20 meters down, revealing a veritable ark of Mediterranean marine life. Apart from several octopuses, they see hermit crabs and moray eel. It looks like these deep crevices are where most of Stromboli's wildlife really lives. If deeper water is a sanctuary, the question now is, could the octopuses be thriving in the depths below? Stromboli's foundations stretch down for over a kilometer. Diving to those depths will require more than just steady nerves and experience. Enter the Minibex, a high-tech dive vessel. Among its cargo is the Remora, a two-man submersible, and a sophisticated remotely operated vehicle, an ROV called Achille, with an onboard camera. As the Minibex navigates its way to the site where the dive is to take place, the technical crews carefully prepare the hardware. It's a major operation. A system failure here could be fatal, so pressure seals and viewing domes are all checked. The sub will be the crew's life support machine. To stay directly overhead in exactly the same position throughout the operation, the Minibex relies on a satellite-linked GPS or global positioning system. This requires heavy torpedo-like transponders to be lowered into the water beneath the boat. As the ROV's cameras and spotlights are double-checked, the safety divers get ready for the launch. As Natalie and Popov, the sub's pilot, climb aboard, the dome is finally unveiled. The hatch closed, and the seal checked for any leaks. The sub is vulnerable to damage, so great care is taken to keep it safely away from the heavy machinery needed to launch it. Once the submersible is in the water, it's time for the ROV. Craned down over the drop-off, the remora sinks deeper and deeper until all natural light disappears and only its headlights illuminate the seabed below.
100 meters.
Then the beam reveals something far more exciting than expected. An old wreck, approximately 2,000 years old, laden with earthenware amphorae, lying scattered around the seabed. As the sub hovers over the wreck, the team can clearly see how amphorae, which once held wine and oil, now provide a comfortable home for all kinds of deep-sea animals. Lobster and crab are everywhere, and they attract predators like the giant conger eel. The conger is one of the Mediterranean's most prolific hunters. The well-cluttered reef-like environment of this wreck creates blind alleys and bolt holes that act as hideouts. Schooling fish go unmolested because the conger eel is really focused on finding easier prey, like rock lobster. They are the conger eel's favorite food. And this wreck has become the setting for countless encounters between predators like the conger eel and those creatures supplying the deep-sea food chain. But this rock lobster, which looks like a sitting duck, can actually make a pretty convincing run for it when necessary. Apart from the usual suspects the team expects to find down here, there is a total surprise. A more unusual visitor to such depths, the Atlantic sunfish, a bizarre Picasso-esque creature. The largest boned fish in the sea can grow up to 3 meters. They normally prefer the shallower plankton-rich waters nearer the surface, where they feed on jellyfish like the poisonous Portuguese man-o'-war. But they've also been known to have a taste for deep-water eel larvae, bringing them down this deep. They're probably attracted here by the bright lights. This one has taken a liking to the sub, or at least what's inside. But notably absent from this lineup are any octopuses. With no sign of them, the sub cuts the dive short.
Qu'est-ce qui te reste comme énergie pour la plongée à toi?
While the ancient amphorae provide a good home and a safe hiding place for some, they might be too small and cramped for the octopuses, especially for mating. The octopus needs somewhere more suited to its slightly unusual style of mating behavior. So Natalie changes strategy and makes a shallow dive into the area outside the danger zone of the Sciara. They want to confirm if the octopus are actually mating right here on the volcano. It doesn't take them long to find what they're looking for. The now familiar male and female have found each other. She's waiting at the entrance to her cave, and he's ready carrying a sack of sperm in a special pouch in his arm. He needs to insert this inside her mantle. That's the main part of the octopus body. But the male seems shy of performing in front of the camera, pushing Natalie away. So the divers keep their distance, and the octopus let them stick around. It's a surprisingly sedate affair. No thrashing arms and flying tentacles here, just a gentle caress. After the mating is over, the female lets go of the male, and she begins to prepare what will be her home for the next 4 weeks. She barricades the cave by pulling rocks into the entrance, sealing it for protection. But as intelligent as the octopus is, there are especially devious predators here, with particularly good strategies for snaring unsuspecting prey. The snake anemone doesn't need to move very much to hunt. It uses an ambush tactic, perfect for this kind of rocky terrain. While it's rare for an octopus to be caught off guard, this small one is. Unlike the older octopuses the team have been following, this little male is still growing and learning. Caught by these deadly stinging tentacles that carry enough poison to kill, it looks like he's learning a little too late. On her way back, Natalie spots the unfortunate octopus. Because the scientists need a small specimen for some tests they have planned, they give him a reprieve and return with it to the surface. They still need to find out if the octopus can actually detect very low frequency sound. And their new friend is going to help them do it.
Really?
Yeah, it's perception.
We're going to give it a few days to adjust to its new environment now before we start with our tests that will show that it only detects infrasound by eliminating all other stimuli. And that's why we had to recreate a lab right here on the ship.
Keeping him in the dark, they set up a test, playing the same frequency sound which they've established Stromboli is emitting in the build-up to an eruption. Covering the tank, they film using only infrared light to ensure the octopus sees no movement from outside. It works. They can see that the octopus responds. They're getting a reaction to the same frequency as recorded in the waters beneath Stromboli. The octopus certainly seems to have joined the list of creatures that can tune into infrasound. But just as they discuss the implications of this discovery, their subject decides it's time to go back home. Without any help from the crew, the young octopus has managed to remove the lid of the tank, find the door, and the quickest route to the sea. They're clearly dealing with a highly intelligent and very resourceful creature, but they have no idea just how remarkable it is, and are about to witness some unique and incredible behavior. The common octopus is about to compete with one of the Mediterranean's most fierce predators. It appears the octopus has another surprise in store for the divers. They have learned how to outmaneuver one of the sea's greatest hunters, the fastest, most hydrodynamic species of shark in the sea, the mako, capable of speeds up to 75 kilometers an hour. Could this be a real turtle and hare scenario? Every summer, from May to August, the Mediterranean becomes a hotspot for some of the Atlantic Ocean's most charismatic marine life. Much of it comes here to breed. Sunfish arrive here in very large schools, as do the giant bluefin tuna. Just one of these prized fish can fetch tens of thousands of dollars at auction. For the tuna, that's bad news, as they're targeted by local fishermen. Near the island of Favignana, 60 nautical miles from Stromboli, these tuna face a devastating man-made gauntlet in the form of nets that trap them until they can be speared at the surface. The carnage up here is bad enough, but underwater it's worse, because the nets don't just catch tuna. Sunfish also perish here in large numbers. Unable to swim and breathe, they suffocate. The only winners here ought to be the sharks, but it seems they can't work out how to take full advantage of the situation, and may even get trapped in the nets themselves. Natalie and the divers have come here to see how a different population of common octopus have learned to exploit another challenging situation. This octopus isn't caught in the net, it's actually laying in wait. They use the net to watch out for hapless sunfish, then dive down to pick them off. These octopuses have learned that they can avoid being caught simply by finding their way out of the net, either under it, or if the fish is not too big, through the mesh itself. An octopus can squeeze through the smallest of gaps. But this one may have to change his route. In the laboratory, octopuses have negotiated maze and problem-solving experiments that demonstrate they possess both a long and short-term memory. And in the wild, obstacles such as fishing nets have merely replaced the maze. However, some of the octopuses here seem to have a rather less charming attitude to scavenging. This sunfish has had both its eyes sucked out by another octopus. Left blind and helpless, it sinks to the seabed to be fought over by two more. But there should be few surprises from a creature that is, in some respects, far more complex than we are. Only part of an octopus's nervous system is actually located in its brain. 2/3 of its neurons can be found in its arms, so who knows what these are capable of just on their own. And being capable of such extraordinary learning behavior, what further revelations await the team when they arrive back at Stromboli? Their next step is to carry out a few classic tests on wild octopus, where they find the now very trusting male. Armed with a mirror, Natalie and the team pay him another visit. They find him at home, and he appears willing to help them with their experiments. He seems interested by the strange object they've brought to show him. At first, he investigates the possibility of this being a stranger, feeling for any clues to its identity. Then he seems to realize it's not another octopus at all, and starts to take a good look at himself. After he's seen enough, he investigates further, reaching around behind the mirror. Where there's a shock in store. Waiting the other side is his old enemy, the conger eel. Both seem surprised by the sudden encounter. Then the octopus does something that is rarely ever seen. Dividing its body down the middle, the two halves take on very different colors. He retreats into his cave with a final squirt of ink as a distraction. But the conger eel isn't about to give up that easily. It continues to prowl, and when the octopus eventually emerges, the eel is still ready and waiting. In the ensuing tug of war, the octopus manages to hold its ground, and the eel can't get enough grip to pull it out. If he stays put, he stands a good chance of surviving this attack. But he needs to stay clear of the eel's teeth. They're sharp, perfectly designed for a deadly grasp on the slipperiest of prey. This time, the eel goes home hungry, and our male survives to help Natalie with her investigations. Apart from divers carrying mirrors, the other thing guaranteed to bring the octopus out into the open is a fight for territory. Now the male that Natalie's been studying is about to face one of his greatest challenges. All male octopus must compete aggressively for prime locations, caves that are located close to where the females are already settled, making the chance of mating easier. These territorial fights are fierce and can be fatal, as each male is prepared to make a significant sacrifice of energy to win. The divers follow their male to his first contest. And he discovers another one already well established in a convenient cave. Then Natalie gets to witness some macho behavior from this cerebral species. The fight is not especially violent, but the two males wrestle hard for several minutes. Natalie finds it hard not to root for the male she's come to know, but even without her support, he's an outright winner. The resident male is evicted, and the new tenant moves in. For the dive team, it means they'll know exactly where to find him next time. The next stage in his life is to find a suitable and willing partner. But right now, all he has to do is try and hold on to his new home. As night falls again, the Minibeck's crew are preparing the Remora submersible for another, even deeper dive than before. They're going to drop down to 300 meters, right in front of the Straits of Fire. They want to see how Stromboli has shaped the deep ledges and plateaus that stretch down into the abyss. The journey is a spectacular one, as plankton and alien-like cone jellies are drawn in by the submersible's headlights. Thousands of minute hairs inside the form of the cone jelly move in unison, creating the faintest chemical interference, which creates a mesmerizing neon-like display. Then a chimera looms out of the blackness. It's a rare species of shark. If you're lucky enough to see one of these, you know you're in deep water. While those inside the submersible are apprehensive, the real nerve center of such a dive is on board the support boat. This is where the sub's vital life support systems are monitored, and where the controls are for bringing the sub back to the surface. When they finally reach the seabed, the lights illuminate a desolate and barren underseascape. It's like the whole place was transported here from the very beginnings of time. The massive rocks that lie around are clearly debris from huge eruptions of the past, where not just rocks and lava came cascading down, but enormous boulders the size of the sub itself. Some of these would have been thrown here during the 2002 eruptions, helping to generate some of the enormous power behind the tsunami. Taking the Remora to a depth of 270 meters, Natalie and the pilot Popov look for more signs of life in the depths beneath Stromboli. This horn coral survives where there is almost no natural light. They also find a cousin of the Stromboli octopus, giving them a very brief glimpse of a deep-sea species called opus toothis. Then, without warning, there's an emergency. The submarine relies on the ship above for all its power, including the headlights. When they flicker and die, it's a sign that something has gone wrong with their power supply. Outside, the light display of the comb jellies shows just how well adapted to deep-sea life these creatures are. And how dependent the divers are on technology. The sub carries auxiliary power for just such an emergency, but it will not last for long. They have to hope they can get back to the surface before they lose that too.
Blackout batterie. Vous faites surface en urgence. On dégage le bateau, terminé.
Without knowing the cause of the Remora's malfunction, safety divers are ready to try and help in case of any failure in the sub's emergency systems. But during the ascent, the sub's main power systems are fully restored. Until the sub is checked out, the dive will still be abandoned and the crew are hoisted back aboard the minivacs. As the Volcano's nocturnal emissions continue into the early hours, the sub dive has now ensured that with Stromboli's dangerous depths well and truly explored, the final chapter in the octopus story is about to be revealed, as the next generation of an extraordinary population of cephalopods face the ultimate challenge. If any creature were equipped to make a successful home here, it would be the octopus. But for Natalie, there is a sad, inevitable outcome to the months they've spent here. Unlike many highly intelligent creatures, octopuses pack their rich repertoire of behavior into just 2 short years. And their final contribution to the octopus legacy on Stromboli is to create the next generation. Like many before them, they will inherit a life in a challenging environment. After so many weeks of watching her every move, the team now observe as the female makes sure her eggs are well protected. She has incarcerated herself inside a cave until they're safely hatched, ensuring that they're guarded from predators, making certain nothing can get close enough to eat them. She also needs to keep the eggs in a healthy environment. Being an octopus mother is a full-time job. Waiting like a pack of hungry wolves right outside the door are schools of fish always on the lookout for a quick opportunity to feed. Throughout the 4 weeks her eggs take to hatch, they remain attached in long vine-like strands to the mother. Like any nursery, the area is kept scrupulously clean as she scrubs the eggs with a jet of water blown through her siphon. This ensures the eggs are kept free of fungal growth, which could smother them and compete for vital nutrients. The eggs show the first signs of becoming octopuses when the red spots of the eyes become visible. And inside the soft, transparent shell, the tiny form of the octopus is beginning to take shape. The female also sucks the strings of eggs right into her gills, using the delicate tissues to carefully brush the eggs clean. Never once does she stop this relentless regime of prenatal care. For hour after hour, day after day, she will continue without fail. The entire time, she must remain alert to the possibility of egg thieves trying to steal her brood. Returning to the location of the nursery cave a few days later, Natalie and the team are privileged to witness the fruit of all her labors, the birth of Stromboli's next generation. As they begin to hatch, the female octopus blows hard to jet the young octopuses clear of the cave. They're about the size of a single grain of rice. Once they're outside, they're completely on their own. Among these newest hatchlings are creatures that Natalie may one day return to see, making their way in life on the volcano. For now, being a newly hatched octopus here literally means being thrown in at the deep end. The chromatophores soon come into their own, as the baby octopuses only have one other defense against the hordes of potential predators, and that is safety in numbers. Inevitably, there are many that will never make it past the first few meters. Thousands are picked off as soon as they're released out of the hatching cave. But enough of the newborn octopuses will survive to keep the population here healthy. For our female, it's all over. Finally liberated from her self-imposed confinement, she shows for the first time the terrible toll it has taken on her. In all this time, around 6 weeks, she hasn't eaten. Natalie watches as her disoriented movement and loss of color indicate serious and terminal decline. The final twist in the Stromboli octopus story is that it's almost never the violent and destructive power of the volcano that claims the life of the octopus. Ultimately, it's the fish of Stromboli that gain from her death. As she's in her final throes, they move in to finish her off. For the most part, this amazing creature keeps control of its own fate. She's invested everything in her young. But the legacy of the Stromboli octopus lives on. Recent additions to the population include small and highly inquisitive young creatures. Among them, a whole new generation of females, reassuring Natalie and the team that the octopuses of Stromboli have a bright future. The population here is healthy and thriving, safe from fishermen, and perfectly adapted. Like generations before them, they're beginning to learn that life here depends on tuning in to their environment. These creatures have adapted to some of the most challenging environments nature has to offer. But in the case of the octopuses of Stromboli, they've gone beyond what even the scientists could have believed possible. Far from being deaf, as experts have believed, these octopuses can actually detect frequencies far lower than those the human ear can pick up. They are remarkable creatures, finding sanctuary beneath a volcano by learning how to detect signs of its eruptions.
This journey has been extraordinary and a true privilege to work with the octopus community here at Stromboli. We set out on this journey to field test for the very first time what the scientists had been doing in their labs for many, many years. And we were, in fact, able to show that they do detect infrasound, which means that they can predict earthquakes and also volcanic eruptions. And you know, I think this is a real milestone in understanding these creatures that have given back to me so much over the years a little better.
The human inhabitants of Stromboli have chosen to live outside the danger zone at either end of the island, where there's no relentless barrage of molten lava and tumbling rocks. Only the octopus has really conquered life under the volcano. Their colonization may have been going on for thousands of years, long before man ever set foot here. And only now, with our sophisticated modern technology, can we even begin to understand how they do it.
we as humans are absolutely not able to do. And this is from an animal that we perceive as being much lower than us.
It's a quest that will bring them right into the path of the perilous Scar of Fire, or Sciara del Fuoco, the most striking feature of the island. A huge horseshoe-shaped depression, created over the last 5,000 years as the crater has gradually collapsed. Over time, it has formed a highway for hot lava, destined directly for the sea, with little time to cool down en route. The Stromboli volcano lies to the south of the city of Naples and just north of the island of Sicily. There have been major eruptions here. One even left a geological scar 40 meters deep and over 800 meters down into its deep-sea foundations. The same eruption caused a Mediterranean tsunami. This is one of the world's most active volcanoes. For over 2,000 years, this island has been spitting fire and molten rock into the sea. Beneath the surface lies a hostile world where there's a constant threat of death, being crushed by rocks, seared by intense heat, or caught by predators. It takes a special creature to turn this hellhole into a heaven. It's a unique challenge, met by a unique species, the common octopus. For one female, and the male pursuing her, can their extraordinary ability to solve problems keep them alive in the danger zone? An octopus, a remarkable creature that has learned how to live on a time bomb. But how do these octopuses manage to survive where so many other creatures perish? What secrets is it keeping up those 8 sleeves? Stromboli's submarine slopes also attract others willing to risk life and limb. Natalie Tesha-Ricciardi is a wildlife journalist born into a filmmaking family. Her father Sigurd was a pioneer in underwater documentary, and adventure runs in her blood. Natalie has teamed up with marine scientists from the Stazione Zoologica, one of the world's oldest oceanographic institutes, based in Naples, Italy. They have a long tradition in cephalopod research, and now they're about to try and decipher how the octopus has managed to make its home in such a hazardous environment.
I think it's very remarkable that the octopus is able to predict volcanic eruptions and even earthquakes.
A massive wave that hit the shores of Stromboli. But the volcano does have a quieter side. At either end of the island, life goes on. The central danger zone, though, is strictly off limits, and all amateur diving is banned. Pressure builds beneath Stromboli, and another eruption is imminent. Natalie and the other divers could find themselves in the line of fire.
Diving at Stromboli is actually very, very dangerous because we will be diving right underneath the Sciara where all the rocks and the lava, all that comes down, and that can potentially create a very dangerous situations for a diver that's right underneath it.
While Natalie is relying on luck to stay out of trouble, it appears that no matter how often Stromboli erupts, these octopuses are always ahead of the game and far out of the way when disaster strikes. It's a phenomenon that makes their residence here not just... Stromboli is a volcanic Mediterranean island. Several times an hour, it erupts. Almost continually active for the last 2,000 years. The ancient Greeks called it the lighthouse of the Mediterranean. Life here is brutal, harsh, and it can be short. Over the centuries, Stromboli has claimed many lives. The summit is like a furnace, and the perilous slopes can suddenly give way under landscapes of tumbling rock and gravel. And Stromboli's danger zone extends right into the sea below. In the devastating wake of an eruption, the marine life takes a regular and fierce beating. Except for this species, the common